Oh God, these are a little heavy, Whew. New HomePods. I mean, kind of new HomePods. They're gonna look pretty much the same, but Apple finally released an updated version of the bigger HomePod. And well, I got 2 of them, and we're gonna unbox them, and I'll do a quick listening test and let you guys know how they are and get you my first impressions. But let's just start doing it. So they come in this all brown box with a pull tab here. Ow. I can get that out. There we go. Typical Apple packaging, always wonderful. I went with the white version because I wasn't convinced that the Midnight was any different than the last iteration of, I think that was Space Gray. And apparently I'm wrong, and it's a little bit more blue like Apple usually does. I don't believe in Apple's cohesiveness with colors, but I also have a bunch of the darker ones from before, so I wanted to go with the lighter version. In here is another one. Now we got 2 for stereo pairing because you still can't cross stereo pair with, you know, definitely not a HomePod mini, but not even the first generation of these larger HomePods. So if you want a stereo pair, you need to buy 2 of them. Why do I keep unboxing? It's so weird. They don't fully flap down. They only do it on just this one side. It's a little strange. Anyways, get that out of here. So here we have 2 HomePods. Here is another Apple pull tab. My favorite way to unbox things, just pull tabs and throw the mess on the ground. And here we go. Now I do have another HomePod. Okay, so one of the biggest differences that you'll know is that you can actually remove the cable. Like, it's supposed to come out. I know in the past when we had the original HomePod, people did take the cable out, and Apple's like, hey, don't do that. You can do that. They actually come detached. And so, yeah. And then another thing is if you have untreated or unfinished wood or unsealed wood, it's still going to leave a mark, at least with the white one. You might stain that wood a little bit. So just a heads up, if you got an IKEA desktop or a tabletop that you use for a desk like a lot of people do, this might leave a ring. And so, well, that's just something to keep in mind. Inside the box, again, you have your cable. It's braided and color matched, which is nice. And it easily attaches like so. Don't know why Apple didn't do this the first time around, but it learned from its mistakes, and now we have a detachable cable, which is super helpful. Probably one of the biggest upgrades, in my opinion. And then there's some booklets in here, pamphlets, things. No stickers, but you do get a guide if you need it. And then one of the other things you'll notice is that up here, this little glass area is actually smaller and a little bit like more recessed, kind of like the HomePod mini, which I have one right here that I'll just take off the shelf. And as you can see, it very much matches the top here. These 2 both look the same, where the glass is kind of recessed. Now, if you're wondering what I'm talking about, on the old one, which I also have on this shelf, the glass is much larger area, and it's like flush with the mesh like netting around it. And so, yeah, it's smaller and it's kind of recessed in. Let's see if this bottom part has changed a little bit. Yes, it has. So that's completely flush and flat. And it does, maybe that's why it looks a little taller. You do have, that's probably what it is. This little coaster stand here just looks a little bit bigger, and so it'll sit up a little bit taller, but I think the actual dimensions are the same. Okay, we got the setup. Boom. You're gonna have to scan this. Scanned, boom. We have the little chime going. And where do we want to put it? We're gonna put it in the studio. We can put it, it doesn't matter. Let's put it in the editing room. Sure, why not? And so one of the first things I'm noticing with the new HomePod is how immediate it is with like taking over and doing the handoff Obviously, the HomePod Mini behaves in the same way, but the previous HomePod was not very good at this, and that's because it didn't have the U1 chip, and this does. Another key difference. But I mean, really, it's really just a bigger version of the HomePod Mini in terms of all of its features and what it can do, and then just better sound quality. And speaking of sound quality, is it better than the original? I think, again, a lot of the people out there who have had this before we did have said that it's pretty much the same, which is actually impressive considering that they removed some of the sound components like the tweeters and the woofers in there. So yeah, let's just do a quick sound test and see how it is. If I asked you, would you tell me that this was I mean, it sounds good. Yeah, it sounds a lot like the first generation. I think it's... yeah, I mean, so far it sounds a lot like the original HomePod. I don't think it sounds any better, but it definitely doesn't sound any worse, which is great news and what I was kind of expecting. I think the controls are much faster. Let's try, hey, I have Google at home. I'm about to say, hey, Google. Hey, turn off production room light.
Okay, the production room lights are off. The IKEA floor lamp is not responding.
I know.
Check the Home app for more details.
Okay. I feel like that's a lot faster than the original HomePod that I had. Hey, turn on production room lights.
The IKEA floor lamp is not responding.
Yeah, I don't use the HomePod Minis here a lot, and so I actually had this is what I use for like the home theater setup, but I think whenever I ask Siri to do something with lights, it's not as fast. So I'm actually gonna plug in the old version and we're gonna do the same test. While this is booting up, one other thing that you'll notice or that I wanted to talk about is with this like glass area here, you'll see that whenever we invoke Siri or we play a song or something and this is illuminated, it's actually illuminating the entire top here. It kind of goes from edge to edge. And then on this one here, you'll see that there is going to be like a bezel whenever I invoke Siri. So if I say, hey, turn off production room lights, it doesn't take up the full edge here. And it's also much slower. I mean, look at how much slower this is. We haven't even gotten the lights turned off yet.
Your lights are taking a while to respond.
No, Siri, you're taking a while to respond. So you can see here, huge difference in this model compared to this. And that's obviously a lot to do with the new chip that's inside as well. We're finally bumped up to what I believe is an S7, which is an A13 equivalent. So yeah, huge difference. And if I got that wrong, I'll annotate it, but that's what I'm pretty sure is in here. And then obviously I wanted to point out that the screen here, whenever I ask this HomePod with Siri here, and it illuminates with its rainbowy colors, you kind of get it from edge to edge. Also, just like the HomePod Mini, these volume controls are always on. It's part of the actual glass. This here, it illuminates up. Whenever we start something or anything, you can see that they kind of go away. I like that a little bit more than having this like part of the etched in glass, but it is what it is. You can see here if I ask Siri again, hey Siri, turn on production room lights. That was a little better.
Okay.
Let's give Siri another shot here since it was much faster on the second time around. Let's see. Hey, turn off production room lights. Okay, that was better. But that initial one was pretty bad. And then lastly, one of the things you should definitely do, obviously when you get this new HomePod, but with your other HomePod Minis, you can download version 16.3 of the HomePod software. And as you can see here, it gives you a whole list of new features, primarily temperature and humidity sensing, which measures your indoor climate with, again, this HomePod second generation, not the first, and your HomePod Mini. So if you have an existing HomePod Mini, you should be able to check out your temperature and humidity levels using your HomePod. And then there's a bunch of other things on here. You can have Find My on HomePod, which enables you to ask Siri for the location of friends and family. You can have reoccurring home automations be set up using just your voice. Siri confirmation tone will now play to indicate when smart home requests are completed, which is what we heard on the original HomePod there. Audio tuning optimizes spoken content, such as podcasts, for even greater clarity on HomePod second generation and the first generation. There are updated volume controls for your first gen to give you more granular adjusted volume updates. And remastered ambient sounds are more immersive and can now be added to scenes, automations, and alarms inside of the Home app. And so those are just some of the things that you can do. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. Are you planning to pick up a new HomePod? Are you going to use it for stereo pair for your Apple TV? If so, you're going to need 2 of these. You cannot do HomePod Mini to HomePod, which makes sense. But what doesn't make sense, I guess, is you cannot do HomePod 1 to HomePod 2 because it will sound technically different, I guess. I don't know. But you need 2 of these. And so let me know in the comments down below what your setup plans are for the new HomePod. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.